marketing and distribution of the book. And then once you overcome that hurdle, then literally, brother, everything else is gravy. Once you take care of the initial expense of printing the book, then all of those proceeds come back into your pocket, which can then be funneled to underwrite other programs.
I know what you're saying, because with my book, The Wings of the Whirlwind, I had to do the exact same thing. Mm-hmm. The exact same thing. I had contacted years ago, major publishers,
sure.
And being a poet and the kind of poetry I'm writing, uplifting, conscious poetry, they didn't want to hear that.
Sure.
So at this point, I'm glad that they did turn me down, because it made me get up off my behind and do something for myself. Mm-hmm. And that's what I did. I did the same thing that you did. I didn't know. I have friends who helped me with the graphics and all that. A friend of mine who worked, in graphic organizations. She's a draftman and all that. And she knew the process. I'm smart enough to know that if I don't have the know-how to do it, I know people who do know how to do it.
Exactly.
And so that's what I use. I use my own ability and people who I knew in the community to do it. And that's what you got to do a lot of times. You got to use what you have. The major publishers wasn't interested in what I was saying.
And that's understandable, because what you're doing in your poetry, what I've done with my books and what other scholars have done, is to create a medium by which we may free the minds of mentally enslaved people, right? And this is a process that many people in the society don't want to see develop. There's a vested interest, both financially and educationally, to keep the masses of Africans in America ignorant.
Psychologically as well.
Yeah, surely. And see, when you look at the infrastructure of this nation, there's money to be made off of building prisons, running prisons, mm-hmm. maintaining prisons. And who are the majority of the people in the prison? We are. What are the reasons for that? So when you begin to understand how society is structured, when you begin to realize, particularly this whole issue of economics, you had mentioned during the break, you were talking about in Woodson's book, he referenced how easy it was for foreigners to come over to
yes.
this country and to literally to sell peanuts.
Mm-hmm. And get rich.
And get rich. And we've got to stop and ask the questions, well, why is it that Asians or Koreans or the Japanese or Arabs can come to the United States and establish a business, a little menial business, and within a matter of years they're doing quite well, and we've been over here for over 400 years and still have not really made the progress or the inroads that we should. If we stop and look at and just analyze that situation, many of the people who come here with models of success already ingrained in their consciousness. They have family members that have had their own businesses. So they understand how businesses work. They know how to work together to cultivate a business. And if you notice one very important reality, when the foreigners come to the United States, they establish businesses in the African American community.
Yes.
When was the last time you ever saw a Korean store in a Jewish neighborhood?
No.
Or an Italian neighborhood?
No, you don't.
You don't see it, not because of the fact these other people are racist, but because these other people understand the value of keeping their money in their community.
And it's not because these other communities don't have money.
Sure.
It's just that, like you said, it's just that they know. It just seems so funny. Like you could take Anacostia, for instance, and you could count the number of Korean business right there in the heart of the black community.
Sure. Well, I think in Washington, D.C., 47% of the liquor stores mm-hmm. in Washington are owned by Koreans. And most of those liquor stores are in the African American community. Now, if we just stop and look at the economics of this, and this is why, again, to have a historical perspective is very important, because during Black History Month, one of the names that you hear over and over and over again is Dr. Martin Luther King. And everybody wants to relegate Martin Luther King to one speech, to one sentence, to 3 words, I have a dream. And what people don't realize is that towards the end of his life, Dr. King was changing his position, and he was beginning to understand the importance of economic empowerment, and he was broadening the struggle for civil rights to human rights worldwide. And that was when he was killed. And there are those who believe that he was killed because he was beginning to move down the same path that a man who had preceded him in death by 5 years, Malcolm X,
yes,
was also beginning to make connections with the struggle for liberation of African Americans and the struggle of liberation for people of color worldwide. And so when you begin to see your history and your culture and your struggle beyond the confines of your community or your city and see it on a worldwide scale, you can begin to see that they're like pieces of a puzzle that fit together. And when you put that puzzle together, you begin to understand who the common enemy is, what the common problems are, and you can begin to seek solutions by connecting with people outside of your country, outside of one specific base. And that is another form of power that has the ability to allow you, again, to control your destiny.
And that means everything. If you don't control anything, nobody respect you. I mean, really, you can say what you want, but until you control, I mean, this is America. I mean, let's be real. I always say you got to know who you are, where you are, and what time it is. And if you control anything inside of that, you know, people don't respect you.
And it's very difficult to ask someone to give you jobs, to give you civil rights legislation, to give you schools. You know, if you go back to the days in which segregation was still an integral part of this country, African Americans had their own schools. We had our own businesses. We had our own banks. We had our own financially viable institutions within our own communities. We didn't have the problems that we have today with our children being expelled from school at an enormous rate. We didn't have the criminal problems that we have in our community. It was only after civil rights legislation was passed and we now had the right to go down to Woody's stores that wouldn't allow us to come in to shop. It's only when we began to move in that direction that we gave up our businesses.
That's right.
And as a result of us giving up our businesses, we lost a very important part of our communities. And now we're seeing other people come in now who are doing the same things that we did 50 years ago in order to build themselves up.
That's true. Well, unfortunately, our time is up, and I just want to say it's been great having you here, brother, to share with us so much knowledge and information. We got to get you back so that we can do this again.
I look forward to it.
It's going to be great. The book is doing great, and the response from the community has been great. Is there a phone number or address that you can give out where we can get in touch with you?
Sure. Anyone who's interested in getting more information can call area code 301-853-2465.
We've been talking with Tony Browder. He's the founder and director of the Institute of Karmic Guidance and also the publisher of the book From the Browder File, and a new book also from Nile Valley Contributions. And we ask that you go out to Pyramid and the other African stores and buy these books. These are books that are written for the upliftment and betterment of our people. I'm Danny Queen. This is Color Me Poetry. And until next time, color me poetry.